Hello everyone, good morning. It's been a long time that I have not recorded anything and I would like to share with you the second step of the peer coaching process. A while ago I recorded a short session on peer coaching, something that we implemented in our school, and now we moved on the second step. After 1 year of peer coaching, we just realized that maybe we should think on what does it mean to be a good coach and how can we better support. So, for a very interesting book, The Coaching Habit, I took that sentence, and I think it's very interesting to realize that when people make coaching an everyday way of working, we do create a better focus. We create courage and resilience amongst our colleagues. Why? Because we help others and we also help ourselves. So remember that we say that the idea of the peer coaching was basically that is the teacher who decides when, who, and how is being coached. The teacher is the one who reflects on its own performance and then realizes what are the needs for him or for her to develop their strategies or develop as professionals. So then they are going to select and they're going to ask a colleague to go and observe a specific lesson and observe a specific element, but they decide what lesson to observe and what element to observe. So it makes a huge difference between peer coaching, evaluation, and mentoring. So the idea is to try to see how can we coach properly. How can we be the good coaches that invite our colleagues to reflect on their performance? So the idea is to make a difference between coaching for performance or coaching for development. So we are not coaching for performance, because when we're looking for performance, what we do is address and fix a problem. While when we coach for development, what we want is to turn the focus from the issue to the person that is dealing with the issue. So we're giving advice and we're inviting our colleagues to reflect on the best ways to solve the problem. And that's a typical metaphor from Lao Tse, isn't it? Is if we give a man a fish, we will feed the man for 1 day. So that will be coaching for performance. However, if we teach a man to fish, that will feed him for the rest of a lifetime. And this is then coaching for development. And this is what. So how can we then be good coaches? A couple of advice that I can give. The first one is avoid being one of the 7 dysfunctional dwarfs. Try to avoid sulky, moany, shouty, crabby. Yeah, and see the coaching process as something positive for yourself. The second thing is to make sure that we follow this process that I presented in the previous session. That we have a proper pre-conference when we're going to discuss the learning outcome. And we need to make clear as a coach that we ask specific questions. We're going to look at types of questions that we can ask, but basically questions that are going to give us a good overview of what are we going to do, what are we expected to do as coaches, what will we see in that session, and what do we want our colleague to observe. And then during the observation, we need to make sure that we focus on what the colleague wants us to observe. Do not look at anything else. Don't be a teacher. Yeah, just focus on whatever the person wants. If the person wants support on differentiation strategies with a specific student, we're going to look at that student and the specific strategies that our colleague has put into place and give feedback only on this element. And this is what we're going to do in the process. We're to avoid being the rescuer, which means that what we don't want is to systematically limp into solving problems, jumping into offering advice. We just need to make sure that we add value with the feedback that we provide. And the value is to invite for reflection. What else? We could probably look at questions along the line of what's in your mind? What is it? What do you want from me? That's the first thing. Inviting for reflection. Looking at the 3 Ps. Looking at the project, the people, and the patterns. Try to understand if the challenge that our colleague has is around content, is around something specific, or maybe the challenge is around a specific student, behavior issues, or maybe the problem is because there are some patterns in place that our colleague is not showing up the best possible way or not giving the right approach. We also need to respect the silence. So when we ask a question to our colleague that we want to coach, sometimes some people need time to reflect on the question and to give a proper answer. So respect that moment of silence. Don't try to fill it up with more questions. What else? Try to avoid lazy questions. try to avoid questions that are really targeting a problem. Create questions that are focused and based on specific outcomes. Try to ask questions that have a foundation, and they invite for identification of the specific element that our colleague wants us to observe. And then look for the old habit. Just look for it and try to define a new behavior and give feedback in a very some ideas of some questions that we can use as good coaches. How can I help? What is it that you want from me? What do you need? Is there any real challenge here for you? Or maybe how would you like the observation to be? This way we develop the ownership, and the ownership it's passed on to the person who's going to be observed. Maybe you want a detailed strategy to get there. What will I see during the observation? What is it that you want me to focus on? And maybe our colleague is going to ask us specific elements. We need to be careful also the way in which we answer to those questions. Yeah, so that's a great question. I've got some ideas which I'll share with you, but before I do, what are your first thoughts? So try to inquire the process by answering with another question. Again, keep inviting the other person to reflect on their own performance. Is there anything else I could try here? So try to invite the person again to really think deeply into it. So what do we need? We probably need time, of course, an atmosphere of collaboration, trust, confidence, being comfortable with discomfort, and particularly being a spirit of vulnerability. Make sure that we can feel vulnerable for our colleagues as well. I think this is absolutely important to put into place. So if you want to find out more about peer coaching, Steve Barkley has an amazing website with blogs and with ideas. You can look at my previous session, which is precisely about Steve Barkley's proposals. And there's a very interesting book from Box of Crayons called The Coach of Habit, which was written by Barkley. So I hope you found this session interesting, and if you have started to do peer coaching in your school, please let me know. It'd be great to know. Bye, thank you.